Imagine a city split in two, not by a river, not by a ravine, but by a wall. A wall that not only divided physically, but also separated hearts and minds. Not just any wall, mind you, but a concrete monster guarded with barbed wire and watchtowers. A wall that stood as a symbol of distrust and fear. This wasn't a scene from a dystopian novel, this was Berlin, 1961. The Cold War, that great misunderstanding of epic proportions, had reached its most absurd manifestation. The Berlin Wall. The anti-fascist protection rampart, as it was ironically called, was built practically overnight. One day you could stroll down the street to visit your grandma for coffee and cake. The next, a concrete barrier separated you. It was as if someone had drawn a line through a family photo and said, "You stay on that side, you stay on this side." The official reason? To keep the West out, of course. The real reason? To keep East Germans in. Turns out people weren't so thrilled about living under a regime that made going to the supermarket feel like a military operation. Who knew? So the wall went up, a monument to fear and division, separating families, friends, and even lovers. But the wall didn't just divide physically, it divided emotionally too. Stories of separated families, of friends who could no longer see each other, of lovers trapped on opposite sides became commonplace. And meanwhile, life went on. People tried to adapt to this new reality, to this new world order that seemed straight out of a nightmare. But resistance was also growing in small acts of defiance and grand gestures of bravery. Propaganda tried to paint a picture of safety and protection, but the reality was much grimmer. The wall was a constant reminder of the fragility of freedom and how easily it can be lost. And so the Berlin Wall became a symbol of the Cold War, a testament to humanity's capacity to create barriers, both physical and psychological. But it would also eventually become a symbol of hope and humanity's capacity to tear down those same barriers, because in the end the wall came down, and with its fall came reunification, hope, and the promise of a better future. But that's a story for another chapter. For now, let's remember the Berlin Wall not just as a concrete barrier, but as a reminder of what can happen when fear and distrust govern our actions, and also as a testament to human resilience and hope. Life in the shadow of the Berlin Wall was, to put it mildly, surreal. It was like living in an alternate reality where normalcy was distorted by a physical and psychological barrier. Imagine trying to explain to your children that they couldn't play with their friends who lived just a stone's throw away because, well, a wall that not only divided territories but also hearts and dreams.
But why, they'd ask? Why can't we cross? Why can't we see our friends and family?
Because politics, you'd reply, feeling utterly ridiculous. Politics, a word that seemed so empty and meaningless in the face of the reality of separation.
For those trapped in the East, every day was a reminder of their confinement, a constant reminder that their freedom was restricted by a concrete structure. The wall was a constant presence, a concrete curtain isolating them from the world. A barrier that not only divided physically, but also created an emotional and psychological divide. Yet even in the face of such absurdity, life, as it always does, found a way. People carried on with their lives, adapting to the circumstances. People fell in love, raised families, and celebrated birthdays, all within earshot of the guards on the wall. Celebrations and happy moments became acts of resistance. Meanwhile, on the western side, the wall became a canvas for protest and art. A space where creativity flourished amidst repression. Graffiti artists turned it into a kaleidoscope of color, a visual cry for freedom. Every stroke of paint was a statement of hope and resistance. Tourists flocked to see this monument to Cold War paranoia, posing for pictures and buying souvenirs. It was a mix of curiosity and awe. It was a strange juxtaposition, a symbol of oppression transformed into a tourist attraction, a place where the pain of the past met the hope of the future. Walls, despite their imposing presence, are not eternal. They are silent witnesses to history, but also to resistance and hope. And the Berlin Wall, despite all its concrete and barbed wire, was no exception. It was a symbol of division, but also of the struggle for freedom. The human spirit, you see, is a stubborn thing. It doesn't give up easily in the face of oppression and always seeks a path towards freedom. It yearns for connection, for freedom, for something more than concrete and division. People wanted to reunite with loved ones, to dance and to celebrate life without barriers.
Throughout the 1980s, the cracks in the wall, both literal and metaphorical, began to widen. People started to challenge authority and demand their rights. Protests in the East grew bolder, fueled by a yearning for change and inspired by the winds of freedom sweeping through Eastern Europe. People united in a collective cry for a better future. The world watched with bated breath as the once unshakable grip of the Soviet Union began to loosen. Political and social change was inevitable.
Meanwhile, in an ironic twist, the wall that was meant to separate people became a symbol of unity for those fighting for freedom. People began leaving messages of hope and peace on its walls, from musicians like David Bowie and Bruce Springsteen, who used their art to inspire and unite people, to world leaders like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. The call for the wall to come down grew louder. Their words resonated across the globe, fueling the hope for a future without barriers.
History, they say, is made of pivotal moments, those incredible instants when the world holds its breath and everything changes. November 9th, 1989 was one of those moments. It wasn't a bloody revolution or a carefully planned coup. No, it was something much more fitting for the absurdity that was the Berlin Wall, a misunderstanding.
During a press conference, Günter Schabowski, the East German party boss, fumbled a statement about new travel regulations. When asked when the regulations would take effect, he hesitated, shuffled through his papers, and uttered a word that would echo through history. Sofort, immediately.
And with that single word, the floodgates opened. Thousands of East Berliners, hearing the news on their radios and televisions, flocked to the border crossings, demanding to cross. The guards, caught off guard and without orders, did the unthinkable. They opened the gates. The scenes that unfolded on that cold November night were simply euphoric.
East and West Berliners, separated for decades, embraced with tears and laughter.
Champagne bottles popped, fireworks lit up the sky, and the sound of hammers filled the air as people chipped away at the wall, eager to take home a piece of history.
It was a party 30 years in the making, a spontaneous eruption of joy that resonated around the world.
Strangers danced on top of the wall, their faces lit by bonfires fueled by discarded watchtowers.
The air crackled with the energy of liberation, of a future finally free from the concrete confines of the past.
Section 6. From division to unity. Rebuilding lives brick by brick. Rebuilding lives brick by brick. The fall of the Berlin Wall was more than just the dismantling of a physical barrier. It was the dismantling of an ideology, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome even the most formidable obstacles.
However, the process of reunification, of rebuilding lives and a nation divided for so long was not without its challenges.
Families separated for decades reunited, their joy tinged with the bittersweet understanding of lost time.
The economic disparities between East and West Germany became starkly apparent, creating tensions and challenges that continue to this day. Section 7. The Wall's Legacy. Lessons in Freedom and Fragility. 35 years after its fall, the legacy of the Berlin Wall continues to resonate, a reminder of the fragility of freedom and the importance of vigilance in the face of oppression.
It stands as a testament to the power of hope, the enduring belief that even in the darkest of times, change is possible.
The Berlin Wall teaches us that walls, whether physical or ideological, are ultimately futile.
They cannot contain the human spirit's yearning for freedom, for connection, for a world without barriers.
Section 8. Echoes of the past, whispers of the future. Sadly, today's world is not without walls.
From the barriers that divide communities to the walls we erect in our own hearts, the lessons of the Berlin Wall remain as relevant as ever.
We must remember that walls are not the answer, they are merely a postponement of the inevitable.
The fall of the Berlin Wall reminds us that change is possible, that even the seemingly most insurmountable obstacles can be overcome.
It is a call to action, a reminder that we must never stop striving for a world where walls are relegated to history books and museums. Section 9. A world without walls, a dream worth fighting for. Imagine a world without walls, a world where differences are celebrated and borders are not barriers but bridges to understanding. It may seem like a utopian dream, but as the fall of the Berlin Wall so powerfully demonstrated, even the seemingly most impossible dreams can come true. The world needs more bridge builders, more people willing to tear down the walls that divide us. Let's learn from the past, embrace the present, and build a future where walls are nothing more than a distant memory. A world without walls. Now that's a dream worth fighting for.